Welcome back. Samsung Electronics permanently discontinuing the Galaxy Note 7 smartphone. Now, yesterday, the company released a statement warning customers with an original Galaxy Note 7 or a replacement Galaxy Note 7 that they should power down at the risk of the phone overheating and catching fire. The company's estimates that recall could cost them as much as $17 billion. The timing could not be worse for Samsung as the 6-year-old design lawsuit heads to the Supreme Court today. After 5 years of litigation, the U.S. Supreme Court will now hear arguments on the patent dispute between technology titans Samsung and Apple. Last December, you may remember, Samsung Electronics paid Apple $548.2 million, fulfilling part of its liability from a 2012 verdict. Samsung will argue before the Supreme Court that the previous ruling was wrong. Joining us right now is former prosecutor Katie Phang. Katie, thanks so much for joining us. What should we be expecting from the Samsung-Apple arguments today?
Well, it's going to be very interesting, and if everybody's watching, because Samsung offered up 2 questions to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, we're only going to address one. Specifically, in a design patent infringement case, can Samsung be responsible for the entirety of its profits being disgorged? The entirety, every dollar of the profits it reached from an infringed phone that it did upon the design of Apple, versus can Apple say, no, you can parse out the actual damages. I mean, Samsung doesn't want to be on the hook for $400 million, and that's exactly what's at play here, $400 million.
So this ruling, does it impact the entire tech industry, you think, or the electronics that consumers purchase as well?
No, it impacts completely the entire tech industry because it's an imposition of the burden of innovation. Basically, Apple's saying, we spent billions of dollars into the innovation, into our technology. People like Samsung, companies like that, shouldn't be able to infringe upon what we do. And the Supreme Court's going to say whether or not, hey, people like Samsung, if you guys do that, you guys are going to be on the hook for the entirety of the profits you made off the sale of your smartphones.
Katie, I just want to add this and get your thoughts on this. There is people, at least in the campaign, saying that there's roughly $200 billion worth of patent infringement and technology lost to China through hacking. And the question here is this an attempt by us to try to get some of this back?
I don't think it's that far-reaching, Anthony. I think what's really at issue, too, and it's really important, is, as we know, the presidential elections have huge import when it comes to placement of justices on the United States Supreme Court. We have a 4-4 split right now, so it's going to be interesting to see whether or not the conservative side rules on the 4 justices that exist, and the liberals that are typically the remaining 4, whether or not they're going to actually come down, split down the middle on this issue. Why? Because we don't want judicial activists. We do not want judges that are going to take the Supreme Court bench and make the opinion or the ruling fit with their own personal agenda. There's a statute that's at play. It's a federal statute. It has complete consequences for every court in the land. And so when the Supreme Court says this statute, you have to read it exactly the way that the wording is, then everybody has to abide by that ruling.
So does it change how the legal system actually calculates damages for design patents?
Absolutely. So right now, that statute that we just talked about, 35 U.S. Code Section 289, says it's every dollar that has been realized by a competitor who infringed on a company's design patent. Samsung says absolutely not. Parse it out. Samsung says you can't make me be on the hook for the entirety of the profits. It will completely change your damage calculations. Will the Supreme Court deliver the 1-2 punch to Samsung? Will be left to be seen. They've already sustained a $1.8 billion loss from the temporary recall that they've done, and with the production, being completely suspended for the Galaxy Note 7, it might be the end of Samsung.
Well, that was going to be my question, Katie. I mean, with the Supreme Court case and with the problem, all of the problems with the phones, which has just been a PR disaster for Samsung, can they recover?
I don't know. And the reason why I say that is if there's further litigation, this is only one of several lawsuits that's been between Apple and Samsung specifically. But if you figure that Samsung's going to be sustaining billions of losses in the actual production cessation of its Galaxy Note 7, then continuing damages as a result of continuing infringement could put the death knell to Samsung.
All right, we will leave it there, Katie. This is a big story, obviously, if that's where this is going. We will see you soon. Thanks so much for joining us.